Things just got a lot more interesting. Errol Spence Jr. releases information about his most recent injury and just got a surgical procedure for his cataracts. So you know, it's not the best look if you're an Errol Spence fan, because obviously people are going to be like, you know, excuses. But at the same time, you have to wonder how much of that played a role, because Errol Spence Jr. said, you know, on social media, no wonder. And everybody wonders why I got hit with a bunch of jabs and hooks from Terrence Crawford. It's because of the eye injury. So you would have to assume that it's his left eye from the southpaw stance, because he was getting hit with a bunch of jabs. I guess he's implying that he wasn't able to see them coming because of the eye injury. And you know, I see both sides. I see both sides. I understand the pressure that Errol Spence was under to go through with the fight. You know, he had the issue with the detached retina against Manny Pacquiao, had to pull out from that fight, and then this was said to be the biggest fight of the decade. So, you know, there was really no option for Errol Spence to pull out from this fight. I understand that, but we also have to remember that Terrence Crawford still did his thing. He had a great performance, and Errol Spence said that. He said still a great performance by bro, and referring to Terrence Crawford, but you know, you start to question now, how legitimate was that performance? I'm still going to give Terrence Crawford all the credit in the world. I'm going to disregard the eye injury and just, you know, give Terrence Crawford his credit. But also, we have to remember that an injury is an injury. So does that affect how a potential rematch would take place? And, you know, what would really realistically happen if these guys are both 100% and they clashed in a rematch? So it's a lot of unanswered questions, but only time will tell. He just got that surgery done, so we'll see how long the recovery period takes for that, because you can only imagine that, you know, he's not going to be able to train for at least 2 to 3 weeks at a minimum. But we'll see what happens. I'm sure he'll be more vocal about it and say, you know, whether or not he's back in training camp, what he's really up to, whether or not he just needs to straight up rest for a month or maybe even more than that. A lot of, you know, questions that are still up in the air. But in terms of what Terrence Crawford does next, it's really his call, because realistically, if he wants to fight again at 47, you know, and consciously understands that Errol Spence can't make that weight, and then if Errol Spence declines that rematch at 47 because he physically can't make the weight, then you could understand why Terrence Crawford would eventually move on to something bigger, maybe a Canelo fight, maybe a Charlo fight, a Tim Tszyu fight. All of those options are great, but I think that Canelo Alvarez makes the most sense financially, and a lot of people say that there are weight classes for a reason, and I would agree, but there are exceptions to, you know, every scenario. You know, Manny Pacquiao went up, you know, 7 divisions to become, you know, an 8-division world champ in the sport of boxing, which is, you know, not an easy thing to do by any means. I don't think that record will ever be touched again, but I think that Terrence Crawford's, you know, cut from a similar cloth, where he has that ability to jump from, you know, 47. He's basically at 54, because he's not, I don't see him fighting, you know, at 47, because he said that it's getting hard for him to make 47. So I consider him more, you know, of a guy that's technically at 47 but ready to go to 54. And for him to be willing to, you know, go to 168, which he said on the Joe Rogan podcast, you know, daring to be great, fight at 168 against a guy like Canelo would be a big fight. And we're not hearing, you know, Canelo entertain it as much as, you know, we'd like to. We haven't even heard him entertain the David Benavidez fight. If he was doing that, pursuing that actively and being outspoken about wanting the David Benavidez fight, then I think that Terrence Crawford would lay off a little bit. But because he hasn't, you know, made any strides to make the Benavidez fight happen, at least, you know, to our knowledge, I think that's why Terrence Crawford's so willing to press that Canelo fight and call for it. Because if he's not going to fight Benavidez, you might as well fight the pound for pound #1 fighter in the world in Terrence Crawford. Why waste time? And he's, you know, Canelo said that he's willing to go down to 160 for Errol Spence, but you're not willing to do that for Terrence Crawford. And Terrence Crawford made, you know, public note of that, because, you know, it doesn't make sense. Otherwise, you know, you see Terrence Crawford as a big threat. That's the only reason why you would come down to 160 for a guy like Errol Spence, but not for Terrence Crawford. I don't see any other reason. If you really want to prove that you're pound for pound #1 and you could potentially take that spot, you have the opportunity to fight the actual guy who's #1 pound for pound. And Terrence Crawford's, you could call him crazy for wanting to do that. You know, just stay, you know, a lot of people are saying just stay in your lane, do your job, stay at 47, you know, go to 54, fight Boots, and make these big fights happen. Fight Tim Tszyu, fight Charlo, but it'll go all the way to 168. You're a crazy man, but that's just, you know, the cloth from which Terrence Crawford's cut, because he's willing to take those risks. You know, a lot of guys nowadays, they're protecting their records. They're trying to stay within this box, play within the lines, but Terrence Crawford's willing to take that risk and be great. So, all the respect in the world to Terrence Crawford, but it is a big jump to 168 coming straight off a fight at 147, but I think he could definitely manage, in terms of his work ethic, the way he trains, when he gets in that mode for training camp. I think that he'll be, more than capable of holding his own against Canelo, and I'd actually favor him in that fight. But let me know in the comments what you guys think about, Errol Spence Jr. talking about how, his cataract surgery was long overdue and how that impacted him during the fight, not being able to see where Terrence Crawford's hooks and jabs were coming from. Is it an excuse or is it a valid argument? Let me know in the comments what you guys think, but thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
That's going to do it for another NASFight Media video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been your boy, Matt Nabong, with another video. Hope you guys enjoyed it all. Thank you guys for the constant support. Salute to y'all always. It's been your boy.